Hey ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. So we are back to this, and what I want us to do in here is create groups for our routing system. So if we go to our routes page, this is inside the routes.php. If we are in here, you can see that there's this admin section here. Okay. All right, so the admin section here, what I want us to do is create groups so that we don't have to write all these one by one. We don't have to repeat ourselves with admin here, like so. Okay. I think I accidentally touched something here on my equipment. All right. Okay, so what I want us to be able to do is this. We say something like router and then put group instead, something like so. And then in here, we'll tell it that this group is for the admin, like so. And then we can provide a function like that. Okay. So what this function will do is allow us to write the rest of the code in there. So I'm just going to move this one here. In fact, just all of it in here like so. Okay. And then I can get rid of all the admin parts like so. So if I actually, let me start from here like that. Okay. So I can get rid of that like so. Okay. So yeah. Now we can do this instead. Now, instead of that, I can simplify this by just saying something like maybe R or something. I don't know. We can just name it whatever we want here. That way we can shorten this to just R like that. Just so you see what's going on and don't get confused that we're using that. We're actually using this variable here. Okay, so all of this is good. Now what this should do is allow us to dynamically add this admin to the beginning of each of these routes before we actually save them. So we don't have this group method, so let's go ahead and create that. So if we go to app classes router, this is where the routing class is. And so what I can say is I can add something like a prefix here. Let me just make it a private entity here because we're not going to use this outside this class. So this is going to be like a prefix. You can call it path prefix or something. Something like that. Okay. So for right now, it's going to be empty like so. Okay. Now with all these routes, before we actually before we save a path, we have to append this prefix here because it's a pre, so we have to append it. So path is path right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say path before we add it there is equal to this, and then we do that path prefix. And then we connect the path itself, like so. That way we add a prefix. Right now the prefix is empty, so it doesn't really matter what's going on. But when we run the group function, it should add a prefix so that we can add it there. Now let's just see if that makes actual sense. If I have a path prefix and then I just concatenate the path, will it make sense? So let's see here. So my path prefix in this case is /admin. So if I put /admin here, I think it makes sense. If I put a /admin here in front of this, it does make sense. So that actually works. So let me copy this and put it on the other routes as well, the post routes. That way it works for both. Yeah. Okay, cool. So now with that, we have prefixes, and let's add the group function here. So let's do public function group. That way we can run our group thingy. Okay, let me put this here like so. So just like these guys, I guess this does not return anything, so we're just gonna say void. But here it expects a few things. So the first thing is a string, which is the prefix. Okay, and then excuse me, and then we expect a function. So this one is what, let's just call it a callback. Excuse me. Yeah, something like that. A callback function is required, so let's leave it at that. And so when we get in here, all we want to do is run this function, because remember, if we go to routes here, this is an actual valid function in here. And let me put a semicolon at the end here. So if we run this function, it's just going to run whatever is in here, which means it will run the get and the post if there's any post routes here, which is great. But in order for that to work, this must be this object right here. Okay, the instance of route. So since we are already inside route, we can just pass that argument here as part of this function that we are running. So if I decide to run this function, I should pass in an instance of router, because router is the one which has these methods in here. So keep that in mind. So the only thing I need to do is just run the callback like so. So you can do something like this where the function is inside a variable, and then the moment you put these brackets like so, it means you are running that function. So this will work just fine. The problem is those paths will be wrong because the prefix here isn't set yet. So what we're going to do is set it. So we're going to say this path prefix is going to be equal to the current prefix that we got from our group. Okay, that's good. But this is just one group. So once we run this function, it's going to add all these in there. So if now I just run something like route a post here next, it's going to add that prefix as well because it still exists. So what we need to do is eliminate that prefix after we run this function. So to do that, we just put that to an empty string like so. Okay, great. So we set a prefix, we run that function, which adds all our routes and adds the prefix there, and then we eliminate that prefix. Now, remember that on this callback function, it's expecting an instance of router in there. So we have to pass in this. Since we are already inside it, we're just going to say this, like so. And that's it for groups, really. So like that, we've created our group. So I'm just going to show you here what the, let's see here. These private routes, right? So what I want to do is at the end of this group thingy, I want us to see what's inside. Do I have a function for this? Just a second. You know, I forget because too many projects. Sometimes I forget what functions I'm using and what I'm calling them. So there's dd there. Okay. So what I want to do is dd this routes, right? So I want to show you that those routes are actually being created properly in the group. Okay, so I'm going to come here and actually let me just die here. We're gonna die on this hill. Okay, so let me refresh and let's see what we get. So as you can see here in the get, if we go down here, you see there's a /admin upload admin my channel. Let's see what the actual routes are supposed to be. So you see here upload video is just /upload video. When we added it here, my channels, my videos, profile and analytics, and when we add them to the group, the final result is that there's /admin added to the beginning of it like that. Okay, so admin, analytics, and so on and so forth. So the group thing is working now. Now, on top of the group thing, let's add some middleware as well, because we want to protect certain pages, just like this admin page. I want to be able to add some middleware here. So now there are several approaches here to this. I'm not really sure yet which direction to go, because let me explain here. With middleware, what you can have is functions, for example. Instead of naming the middleware here, I can just put a function here, which is another callback, like this. Okay, so I'm giving it a function here, and I'm giving it another function here as middleware. So what middleware is, for those that do not know, is just a control system for access. So before we load any controllers, we want to run some functions to determine if the user has rights to be on that page or not before we give them access. So we could run just a function here straight away. Just run that function. Or we could run a file instead. Maybe create classes that gives it a more robust system, because certain times your middleware may be long. Maybe you do need to do a lot of calculation to get to the point, and it'll look very messy if it's right in here. So maybe what we can do instead is, okay, we still need to put a comma there. We can have an array of middleware. So maybe you say this is admin area. We're going to call this middleware admin, something like that. Okay. And this means only people with admin access can view this page. So we can do the same thing over here. Let's say, for example, login doesn't need any middleware for that's fine. Maybe the profile here needs what we can call this one is something simple like auth, for example. Yeah. So as long as they're authenticated here, that would be okay. Now, as you can see, this can be another group as well. Instead of giving them singular middleware like this, I could just put these guys in a group as well. So let's go ahead and change that. So I'm just going to say router. Let's put this one in a group like so. And we're going to say this one is /profile. And we give it a callback function. Let's do that. Okay. Then let's give it some middleware as well. So that's an array I'm creating there with one middleware. The reason I'm making an array is because sometimes you may want to say, okay, they must be authenticated. They must also be an admin. So you put two middlewares that need to run to authenticate that user or to make sure they have access to that page. So we put an array for future-proof purposes. And then let's move these guys into this group. And let me change this to just R for simplicity. And yeah, this is good. So there's auth here. Now we should put also middleware for singular. Sometimes you just want, maybe there's a single page somewhere that's not part of a group, but you want it to be protected as well. We should be able to put middleware there. Okay, but for now, since we have this /profile here, we don't need it in here anymore. So I'm going to remove all of that, just leave it like that. And with that, we are done. It should work just as good. Let's see here where we have profile. Oh yeah, because this is just showing what went through the group. So let me refresh. Let's see if we get some extra stuff here down here. No, we don't, because it dies the moment. So let me remove that die. That way we can see more stuff. Okay, so yeah, there we go. So we got more stuff here, and we should see profile working just as intended. Okay, so session cannot start after headers have already been set. I know. Okay, so let's remove that. Okay, so good. Groups are working. Very nice. So the next video, let's deal with middleware. So we're going to deal with this part here. All right, guys, I will see you in the next video.